bite me, eyes.
Alrighty then, well, I'm going to hit the button over here in 5, 4, 3. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Scream Team Talk, our very first episode. We are with a couple of our teams. We have Brian from Team Skelegors. Everybody say hi to Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Hello.
And we also have Austin from Team Brouhaha in New Mexico. Everybody say hi.
Hello.
Hello, Austin.
Hello.
We are currently waiting on another one of our teams to join in here, and since this is our first time hosting our very own live, actually in-person show, we're doing a little bit of testing. If you can, drop a comment and let us know what the stream quality is like for you. If you can hear audio and video and all of that good stuff, that would be excellent information to have. And we can learn all this stuff as we move forward and help talk about some good stuff with you guys. So today, I was going to say this week, but I don't know. We don't really have a schedule.
First
Today
annual.
We're talking about, yeah. Today we're going to talk about local legends. We thought it'd be an interesting topic to do alongside with the Fear Expo that we're working on. And so basically what we did was talk to some of the teams. I'm reading a message from one of the other people. Sorry. So we did a little bit of research around and was learning about some of our own local legends, things that we are well aware of, some things that we're not so well aware of, and thought we could do sort of a roundtable discussion, shoot the bull, and talk about some of these local legends. So one of the ones, I guess we can kick off, one of the ones that we have around us, and we actually just recently went here for a paranormal investigation, is Bobby Mackey's.
Bobby Mackey's Music World.
Music World, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people know about Bobby Mackey's. It's more so known for like a lot of demonic cult-like stuff going on down in the basement. They do have a particular room with a... it's actually an old sewer well.
Slaughter well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They used to, way back in the day, I guess it was a butcher shop, and that's where they would drain all the blood. And there's tunnels that take it out to the river or wherever it would go. And
it is called the Portal to Hell, if anyone's familiar. That's what they call this.
Yeah.
And the caretaker of Bobby Mackey's, Carl, had worked there since he was 20 years old. And he was convinced that the portal to hell was like a way for demonic presences to come into the world. And he himself supposedly became possessed by these demonic presences. And he was actually exorcised in the building by a real priest. And I don't know if the exorcism was successful or not, but it was just kind of interesting to hear that and to see the well when we were there last weekend. We didn't catch anything around it, but it's also said that Pearl, a lady that was pregnant, was near the building, and she was murdered by her boyfriend, and they cut off her head to keep someone from identifying the body. And it's kind of known that they think they put Pearl's head down the well as well, like the slaughterhouse well, but they never could prove it. So they think that Pearl kind of haunts the building too. We don't know, and there's no, like, if you look up on Wikipedia, there's no known documentation of any of this stuff like actually happening there. It's all just kind of hearsay and legend. So we would kind of wanted to just check it out for ourselves, see what kind of paranormal activity we could get. And I will tell you, within 10 minutes of being in the building, I had a spirit box in my pocket, which is a box, like it's a little radio, and it basically, you turn it on and it scans AM or FM radio frequencies. Well, when you turn it on, it's always set to FM. So I'm in the women's restroom with another investigator of ours, and I'm literally on the toilet going to the restroom, and the spirit box turns on in my pocket. And I wasn't moving. I don't think I could have turned it on. It could have happened. But when it came on, it automatically started scanning the AM channel, which it doesn't do that on its own. You have to set it manually. So I freak out. She freaks out. She's like, "What the heck is that?" And I'm like, "It's the spirit box turned on in my pocket." And it's sitting there going to town. So I take it out when I'm finished going to the restroom and I'm like, "So if there's a spirit in here that would like to talk to us, my name's Nora. We're friendly. We're not here to harm you. Do you have anything you'd like to say to us?" And it promptly and very clearly said, "I want you to die." And that's all we actually ended up getting from the spirit box that night. And it was within the first 10 minutes, and it was a clear male voice. And even I was like, surely it just turned on and it's scanning channels. But even if that's the case, it's AM. And who would be saying something like that on a radio? But anyway, kind of odd. Other than that, we caught a few shadows, saw a few shadows. A few of us thought we got touched. It's pretty cool seeing the building because the mob used to run it, and there's real bullet holes in walls, so it's kind of cool to see all that. But we were only there for 2 hours, and we didn't catch any spiritual, like apparitions on camera. No orbs, nothing really out of the normal.
Right.
We did have what is it?
The SLS camera.
We have an SLS camera that uses an Xbox Connect camera to basically outline a human figure when it detects a full human figure. We did have that, and we took it around most of the building and caught two things with it. One was in a jail cell down in the basement that they say the mob used to use to actually torture people that owed them money. And it is a little bitty jail cell, like big enough for one person to be in, and that you can tell, like, it's all blocked in, like there's real rock on the wall, and the building is not made like that. So they clearly wanted somebody to be able to make a lot of noise in there, and nobody would be able to hear them. So that was pretty freaky. But the camera picked up a figure in this room. So we're not sure if it thought that maybe the chair was a person or what. From that, we never did get anything else in there except for we did the EMF reader. Like we had one in our hand. That's the device that goes to red. Like if a spirit touches it, it goes from green to like orange to red. And one of our investigators was in there trying to get someone to communicate with us and grab that EMF reader. And when he said, "Do you want us to leave you alone?" it instantly shot up to red. So at that point, we were like, okay, I think we'll leave this area alone. Other than that, a group member got sick and had to leave the building. But we would like to return to Bobby Mackey's Music World at some point. It's pretty cool. The building's got a lot of history, and if you have the chance to go, it's like $25 to $35 a person to give it a tour. So,
Absolutely.
mm-hmm.
That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, it's as soon as you said the name and I saw the thing that you guys had posted on Facebook there, what I should do is we're gonna do this whole television production thing. I'm talking, so I should be on camera. um, I remember seeing years ago on yeah, I remember seeing years ago the on the Travel Channel the uh, the ghost frat boys there. Zach or whatever his name is, the idiots that get scared by their own shadow. I remember seeing them at Bobby Mackey's, and it didn't click for me until you said the name out loud. And I thought, oh yeah, that's right, and the portal to hell and all this other stuff. And I still roll my eyes at it, but sounds like you guys had a good time though. I think we lost. I think we lost. Oh, there you are. Welcome
Oh, there
back.
we go.
I was trying to save you some internet. We did have a few more teams jump in, so I was turning off my video to
Yeah,
help save a
our
little bit
streaming to YouTube, we're watching it, and I know we're live right now, and people can hear us very delayed, but we are completely paused on YouTube right now. Like it's just stopped. So I don't know if it's our screen
Well,
or
it should end up buffering and stuff, so it should pick back up.
And I don't know if somebody else with better internet can maybe pull up YouTube too and see how this video is streaming and check it for us.
Just want to make sure we're not giving our viewers too much trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how much of what I said you guys caught there, but yeah, I remember hearing about that on TV.
It's a very popular place.
What is it? Ghost Hunters or whatever stupid name they have for that show. It's the
You're
frat
probably talking about
boys. It's the frat boys that get afraid. They're scared of their own shadow. Those guys.
Yeah.
There's several of those now.
Yeah, unfortunately. Um,
So, Brian, did you have any local legends that you had been able to dig up?
I do. So I live in central New York, and we have a few very famous ones here. We have the Landmark Theater, which is nationally known. It's supposed to be one of the most haunted theaters in the country. It's probably one of the oldest theaters in the country to date. But I'm not going to talk about the Landmark Theater. Um, Instead, I'm going to talk about
Okay.
Cedar Vale Road, which is
Cedar Vale Road.
yes, also known as 13 Curves. So we'll start with the legend here. More than 70 years ago, a couple on their honeymoon were driving down this road. It was late at night and they were both getting very tired. They were on their way to the hotel to stay the night. In the morning, they planned to wake up and drive to New York City for further honeymoon celebration. The wife, having been up since the day before, had already fallen asleep in the passenger seat. The husband was driving the car and he was struggling to keep his eyes open. That was when he succumbed to the drowsiness and fell asleep at the wheel. The car went careening off the road and smashed into a tree. The wife and husband were both sent flying from the car. The wife, barely holding on to life, crawled the ground looking for her husband. When emergency teams arrived, they found the wife with a bloody trail behind her leading from where she landed. A police officer ran to her and held her in his arms. She was still just slightly alive and with her last words asked where her husband was. What? Sorry. Thanks. The emergent Keep rolling. The emergency teams
Rolling.
never recovered her husband's body. It is said that the wife haunts this road, and if you go driving the street at night, you can see her ghost wandering aimlessly looking for her beloved husband. So,
Dum dum dum.
so the legend, as you can, if you listen to it and if you read it, it falls apart, right? And this is just one of the many legends that surround Cedar Vale Road in Marcellus, New York. Other stories will say over 60 years ago, some over 70. Others give specific years, such as 1954 and 1928, which, for the record, 67 and 93 years ago are those respectively. Which I suppose that they both fit that more than 60 years ago narrative. Um, but yeah, it's so legends never really quite agree on when this supposedly happened. So
Right.
Cedar Vale Road, or 13 Curves as it's better known in the central New York area, is a mile-and-a-half long stretch of winding turns through a dark and forested area. It's a rite of passage for teens to take a ride down this scenic road in hopes of finding the ghost bride or perhaps a scared girlfriend that needs to be very close to you now. Some legends say that the supposed accident happened on a Friday the 13th, and now the bride roams the curves every time the calendar lines up with the superstition. Others note that she only appears on Halloween night around midnight. A local man has actually played into the story by hanging a Halloween prop between two tall maple trees near his driveway just off of Cedar Vale Road. And the prop is dressed in white and has caught the eye of a few passersby, which I find hilarious. I don't think the sheriff's department finds it as funny as I do.
Right.
But having been a reckless teenager that grew up in the Syracuse area, I have personally driven down this infamous stretch of road several times on Fridays the 13th, Halloween, on a blood moon, on a full moon, on a new moon, and on every other half-assed superstition tradition. And not once have I found a woman in white on the shoulder of the road or looked in my mirror to see a ghostly apparition. I suspect this has something to do with it all being a local myth that's been handed down through the ages. Because I remember my mother telling me when I was about 10 years old, telling me about this when I asked her to tell me a real life ghost story. And I don't remember all of the details of what she told me, but I'm certain it resembled the countless others that are floating around. And although it was more than 2 decades ago, I vaguely remember a haunted maze attraction that was at one of the farms near the southern end of the road. I haven't seen any advertisements for this in recent years, and I can't recall the name of it, but I do recall being very scared as a Boy Scout. While the woman in white may simply be a hoax or a tall tale, Cedar Vale Road has witnessed a number of real life injuries and deaths, as all similarly hazardous roads do. On July 4th, 1941, a woman died in a collision, though she was not a bride. And on November 30th, 1959, two girls died after their toboggan slid into the icy road and collided with an oncoming station wagon. Reportedly, the road was so icy at the time that the responding police officer was barely able to stand on it. And while there have been a number of other cases of tragedy on the road, no evidence of a newlywed bride dying in an accident exists. And given the notability of such an accident, especially in the early years of an automobile, it's unlikely that such a case would not have been featured in a local or even state or national newspaper. And also, such accidents usually produce other legal documents, which in this case are conspicuous by their absence. So yeah, it's Cedar Vale Road. It's in the fall time, it's beautiful to drive down, but definitely creepy at night. And I think it's a fun time. I think we've lost all of our other people here.
I still see Austin
Yeah,
and
I'm still
Andrew
here.
in there.
Okay, we just lost
I just
video.
switched off video save. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just turned it off to try to save.
No,
Yeah.
that's quite all right. Yeah. I just happened to look
Austin,
over and I'm like,
on the
I
train.
don't see everybody. But yeah, Cedarville Road. It's a beautiful drive. Very creepy at night. Highly recommended, especially if you're looking to get your newfound girlfriend good and afraid, so she sits on your lap for a while. But no ghosts. None that I can find. No ghosts that I can find. Austin, what do you got? What's happening in New Mexico?
So I've had some kind of paranormal activity. Where I'm at currently, we have the petroglyphs kind of all around the Native American lands around where I live. So we have a kind of a legend of skinwalkers. So it'll be basically it's Navajo kind of a lore, if you will, that someone would murder a family member, then they could transform into animals or shadow people, if you will. So about a couple of years ago, went on a little side trip from Colorado to Santa Fe, and we were kind of walking around town at night, but occasionally you'd see out of the corner of your eye kind of like a dark shadow kind of hiding in an alleyway, or there was one bar that was right by the State House, which is one of the oldest, most historical buildings, and just a lot of dark kind of energy feeling there. But just late at night, you'll see like a coyote or an owl that just doesn't quite act right. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell.
Have
But
you
don't.
personally ever found anything that really freaked you out with that, or?
Um, not really. I mean, I've had some really weird paranormal experiences, but in Colorado, not here in New Mexico.
Tell us about some of those.
Okay. So Stanley Hotel, been there quite a few times. It's been on Ghost Hunters, all the different shows, and over the years, they started to embrace kind of their haunted history as well as Stephen King. Um, the room
Right.
he's in, there's kind of a lady in white that basically what happened in the late 1800s. She was lit a candle and there's gas in the room, so it blew up and launched her down the level below. So people see her, not the lady in the shower, just a lady in white crying. But some of the most unusual paranormal I've seen. Spent the night there right over by the ballroom. You can hear kind of a faint sound of a piano that gets louder the closer you get to the piano, but no one's in that room. And then there's a complete tunnel complex underneath that connects it to the carriage house as well. That there is a lot of dark rituals are performed there, like satanic rituals that were performed there. So you still see some of the graffiti and some of the things they left behind, but couldn't be in that room for more than like 5 minutes, even if you paid me.
Ooh, we want to go to the Stanley Hotel so bad.
Yeah, I've wanted to
It's
stay there for a long time, but it's so expensive.
it is. That whole town's expensive, but it's a beautiful town, a lot of wildlife, and a lot of history there too. If you saw the made-for-TV Shining, it was all filmed there, so
Right.
When I was a
Right.
kid, we went there and they had the hedge maze, and they had animatronic hedge animals as well as all the mounted animal heads were animatronic.
Oh, nice.
So
Oh
they'd
wow.
randomly turn on and freak out people. So it was a definitely an experience. And the stairway there that Dumb and Dumber was filmed on is local legend is it's a gateway to hell. It's a vortex of dark energy, so that's why it's so haunted there.
Is
Oh.
is that because Jim Carrey is a Scientologist, or just?
I don't know. Who knows? It's a wonder why there's some weird stuff in there.
Speaking of the paranormal experiences, we've got a couple that we could attest to. One of the other local legends close to us is Waverly Hills Sanatorium. And last year, after our Monster Bash party, which is a end of year hunt season kind of party that we throw, uh, some of the members of Waverly offered us an opportunity to go through after the party and do a quick guided tour. So of course, we jumped on that and got to go through a few times. And when we were on I'm wanting to say the third floor, might have been the fourth floor. I can't remember for sure, but had my back turned to the entire crowd, facing a dark corridor that nobody was in, and I had my phone out. I was trying to take a nighttime photo, so I had to hold the camera real still for real long. And as I was exposing that photo, somebody or something whispered in my ear, "I apologize for the sound of my illness." And if you know what Waverly is, it used to be an old tuberculosis hospital. There was like some 40-some thousand people supposedly died there. So kind of made sense with what he said, but at the time it was just so plain as day and so right here with me. Even though that's what he said, I just thought it was somebody else in the group talking to me. So I'm just like, okay. So I just keep taking my picture, and then as soon as it was done, I looked over and wasn't anybody there. So Nora was over there. I turned and looked at her. I said, "Who was just standing next to me?" And she's like, "Nobody." And I'm like, hmm, okay. But it was so clear and so plain as day. I mean, I could have swore that somebody was standing right next to me. And as it turns out, no, there wasn't. But something whispered in my ear, and it was pretty creepy.
It was, yeah. Well, it was creepy just to be in there because Tyler he doesn't believe in ghosts either.
Right.
Like Brian. So for him to look at me and I'm like, why do you want to know who was standing there? I don't know. I don't think there was anybody there. And he's like, because somebody just said something to me. And I'm like, what? Really? To you? Are you sure? So that was kind of interesting. And now Tyler's like, I do kind of want to go back to Waverly now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to do the 10-hour, the 8-hour, overnight stay. We definitely want to do that.
Get the SLS camera in there and see if we can pick out any shadow people, that kind of stuff.
There's an asylum near me called Rolling Hills. I say near me. It's in East Bethany, which is a good hour and a half away from me. But they do those 12-hour like psych hold uh, overnight deals. I would love to go do. Just I want to take a few people and go do a photo shoot in there, but I don't think that they'd be terribly accommodating because they're all like, "Ooh, it's spooky, it's haunted." I'm like, "No, it's not. It's a cool abandoned building."
Right. So we also have Andrew in the chat. He is from Team Hauntorama in Colorado. How's Andrew doing tonight? Is he still
there? He is.
There he is.
Yeah, we're doing all right. We're just kind of hanging out right now. I'm not sure I have much to add to the stories that you guys have already told. I unfortunately have never a supernatural experience personally. I've wanted to my whole life. I think I'm maybe just kind of scaring the ghosts away, being a little too excited going up to them, but never had anything personally. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's about all I have to add.
He's listening to our legends.
Well, we're excited to have you with us anyway.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
How about you guys, Tiffany or Dan? How you guys got any local legends or ghost stories you can tell from
got an interesting ghost story that's secondhand. A friend of mine plays in a hair metal band, and he was doing a show at a bar called the Oxford up in Snohomish, which used to be a timber town. And the Oxford Saloon, as it's still known today, has been known as that for about 130 years. It originally was a saloon that was in Snohomish, as well as a whorehouse. And the dressing room for the band was upstairs in one of the old rooms. And he was up there changing, and he felt fingers go down his back, like something his wife would do, where it was a skidder or rolling fingers down the back. And at that point, he just picked up his stuff and went out into the hall and finished getting dressed, and then he won't ever go upstairs there ever again. And they play there like every few months. It's pretty regular. But he relayed that to me, and there have been other ghost stories there. But that's the first one where I'm like, all right, that's secondhand. That's somebody I know and I trust. So that's a drastically different experience there. Personally, I've never had anything happen. I still like to eat there a lot, though. We've got really good food.
Food trumps being scared away by ghosts for sure.
And I'd like to see something there.
Right?
You have any experiences with all your weird stuff in the Midwest?
Yeah, I have more experiences in the Midwest because we actually would go ghost hunting and stuff like that. And I did one of my thesis projects on urban legends.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really like to collect ghost stories. One of the one that was in the area that I don't know if we made it worse. So you know the game, like make it worse, make it better. Okay. I think we made it worse. But anyway, the urban legend is that you have this disappearing farmhouse, right? The middle of boondocks, nowhere. It's called Primrose Road because that's just a nice name of the road. And then it's supposed to be like on Friday the 13th at midnight when the moon is high and it's a full moon, which a lot of things have to align in order for that to happen, but it happens every now and then. And so you go out, you see this farmhouse, and people have driven up to the farmhouse, walked up to the farmhouse, and right as they're getting onto the porch, the whole damn thing disappears, and they're in like this open cornfield. Very Midwest. Very Midwest.
Yeah. Are you sure they weren't just drunk and got lost?
How we made it worse is so that was kind of the story, and there was this lady in white. Oh yeah, remember my character? Oh, okay. Makes sense now. I played a lady in white character, and I was really obsessed with it, and nobody understood, and this is why.
No, I understand that. That's actually an old trope in ghost stories.
Right. So you have this lady in white that opens the door and whatever. Nobody actually made it to the other side. They always just ended up in the cornfield, and that's how it is. But this is also the same road that if you go ahead and you put your car in neutral and you go uphill, right? Well, a whole bunch of my friends and I, in order to make it worse, we would stage that area. So that's where I went ahead and did. That's where I went ahead and like did hung my brother from a tree. So I made a rig to make it look like he was hanging from a tree.
That makes sense with Mike.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's all in this area. So we had all this stuff like kind of set up, and it was just kind of it was like, oh crap, it's.
So you know now your local ghost story probably was something staged.
But yeah, one of them was like the kid's hands. So you're supposed to like put baby powder or something on there, and basically all it is just that the oil from your hand from opening and shutting your car. So as long as it's like dusty in the road. So yeah,
So most of the Midwest.
yeah. But it was just one of those things is that there was so much lore and so much stories around it that like that was real. That was reality. And it just was really insane because we had people like me who was not being. I taught other teenagers when I left to carry on the tradition of primrose and to scare people. Just it's I don't know. It's how you get urban legends. It's kind of like a tall tale
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're just creating new local folklore.
Yeah, basically. But you add stories onto it, right? So like, oh yeah, I went ahead and went to that old farmhouse, and the lady in white did let me in. But do you know what happened next?
Hmm.
I'll show you. Let's go.
Yeah.
If you've never seen it, there's a documentary called Cropsy. Document. Wow. A filmmaker decided to do one that was on his local urban legend from where he grew up in New York. And he actually tracked back the history and the evolution of the actual tale and what he grew up with of a insane asylum patient that escaped and was living in the tunnels underneath the old hospital that was right next to the neighborhood he was off of. Part of that story was true. There was a guy that escaped. He was then later caught, but that whole story then perpetuated in the fact that the hospital was built on top of a catacomb level of tunnels between all the structures across like 5 acres, created that bit of folklore. I thought it was really interesting because you can watch how the story expands over time. It actually tracks down all the pieces of it.
Interesting.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of another story in my hometown is the Bond Street Mansion. So there was this young girl that died because she got like pneumonia or something like that. But she died really young. That's the purpose. You have a grieving mother, also in white. A lot of women in white.
I mean, the woman in white is traditionally grieving mother or grieving bride.
Yeah, all of these are grieving mothers. Everyone's sad. No, so you have this grieving mother, and there was a cemetery across the street from the Bond Street Mansion, and you could go there during the day and you could see it. But the rumor had it was that there was a tunnel that went underneath the street, so you could go from the mansion underneath the street to the grave of the young daughter. And so what then became like the ghost story or the lore religion, again, same thing is under these circumstances of full moon, you know, the birth date of the kid that I don't even know what it is, but yeah, just a lot of circumstances that makes it very unlikely. But what it is you're supposed to see like a candlelight like light up in the attic, and then it suddenly go out, and then you can kind of see like movement around the house. And then if you're in the cemetery, you're supposed to see the light come through the tunnel and then go into the cemetery and recede into it. Trust me, we babysat that. Yeah, we babysat that cemetery and that freaking drain pipe, and no light ever came out of it. But we also weren't there 360, so maybe we just got the date wrong. Nobody seems to know. But that was like one of my favorites. And then there was the Green Witch of Silverbrook Cemetery. No really back history of her other than same thing, weird circumstances. You kind of go over here, you put stones on like a certain tombstone that's like really old, and you know, like this witch is supposed to appear. Was at that cemetery all the time because it was right across the street from where we were. Yep, nothing. So, but it's amazing stories, and so relating to how it goes into haunts and all this other stuff, like local haunts definitely played up on all these. So like, we had a Lady in White, we had the Green Witch.
It's great for folklore to get played up locally. It works out well. It's all right. This is a bit of a tangent. When I was a kid, I went to summer camps in Lake Samaritan. And if you don't know, the Seattle area was built on the timber industry for the 49er Gold Rush and then the Yukon Gold Rush after that. Everything that was used to build Anchorage and San Francisco, all that timber came from Washington, specifically through the canals and the rivers here. The Sammamish to Lake Stevens area was all timber, including Snohomish, where the previous story was. And In Sammamish, it is a known fact that a timber train, while it was moving logs, actually fell off the rails and killed the lineman that was covering the train.
Oh.
The logs not dragged him down a hill and drowned him in Lake Sammamish. The camp I was at is literally built on the shore where the old train used to run. And if you dive down in the lake, you can see the timber pile that's still down at the bottom of the lake. Historically speaking, the guy's body was recovered. The local legend was, this is even what the camp counselors told us, definitely playing it up. If you go swimming at night, he'll come out from the logs and drag you down to join him at the bottom of the lake. And so that was something that I grew up with. This last Halloween, my dad is now doing radio personality after being a meteorologist forever, and he wanted to do something for Halloween, but they couldn't do what radio stations usually do of like, hey, come do a trick and treat in there, because it was pandemic. And so he wanted to make a radio drama, but didn't know any local folklore. And so I told him that one, and he just took it from Sammamish to Stevens, and he actually wrote a whole radio drama on it. And so that's actually up on the ever. I'll have to find the radio station. They have a radio station, but you can actually listen to the whole radio drama there. Little bit of a tangent, but it's like I grew up with that as a ghost story, and then I'm like, okay, cool. And I told it to my dad, and he blew it up. Their entire radio station voice acted it. It's amazing to have all of these daytime voice personalities that are used to doing like news and weather playing characters for that.
I know if I was a scout at this camp or a kid attending this camp, they would not have to worry about me swimming in the water at night.
Yeah, same here. No.
That is for sure.
I am not going nowhere near that water.
I'm the kid they would have to be pulling out of the water because I'd be looking for the dead guy.
Yeah, I feel like Brian would be in it. Like, yeah.
I'm
Damn
with
it,
Brian.
Brian.
I would free dive down to those logs. I mean, they're only 40 feet down. That's not too deep.
Holy cow.
Wow.
Brian, I think you had the few things in the queue. Do you have any other ones that you'd
Nothing,
elaborate on?
nothing that I've really prepared for. You know, like I said earlier, you know, we're doing this. I'm doing this.
I might have just made that up and threw you under the bus. And...
No, no, you didn't. You didn't make it up. It's why does that? Well, I'm gonna talk and I'm gonna delay while I fix my video here because my
Nope.
video wants to do some funny stuff. Oh, why you know work?
Man,
Well, hey, this is Andrew. I actually had a question for Austin. Did you
Oh,
go to Riverdale Road?
absolutely. Went there. Let's see, it was a couple years ago. Third Bridge as well, but during Halloween season, there was a haunt over there. It was a couple years ago. They actually integrated that into the lore. Um, I've been there. I've seen the blood on the signs late at night. But actually, they opened up. It was about a mile down the way. But the actual house that the husband burned his family in, the remains were actually there. And they actually had the haunt incorporated through them. But yeah, it's a bit much to take. I definitely pick up a lot of energies around there, and been doing a lot of paranormal hunting in Colorado when I lived there. A little here in New Mexico, but we're starting to finally open up a little bit, so looking to have the experiences. But yeah, that was intense walking through that by myself for 2 hours for that walkthrough haunt. But yeah, it's and then Third Bridge, I've been underneath there, heard the drums, and I don't know if you park your car there, but it'll move with the handprints. Only had that happen once.
Oh, on the railroad tracks, right?
Yeah, on the railroad tracks. Yeah, if you put neutral, it'll move forward, and then you get out, and there's handprints, children handprints on the back.
Yeah, I've heard about that. It was the story was that like a school bus got hit by a train or something, and it totally falls apart when you start asking questions, right? That one.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And speaking of New Mexico, have you had any encounters with La Llorona or chupacabras or anything like that?
Not really, like a little, but I mean, you hear noises at night, but nothing really that stood out. And I mean, the Rio is a bit of a ways away, so not a lot of creeks or rivers
Yeah.
where I am. It's just just a kind of like a plateau I'm on right now, so not a lot of activity here unless there's a rainstorm. But
Unless there's a rainstorm.
oh yeah, flash flooding if there's like 5 minutes of rain here.
Oh,
The arroyos are
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, people get drowned in the arroyos if they're playing it and there's a rainstorm because it's just a flash flood in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, and your New Mexico has a large population of coyotes too, doesn't it?
A little bit. We're starting to get some Mexican wolves back in the areas too, but um, eh, only heard them a couple times, just kind of hunting at night. But a lot more like just a lot more road runners and stuff like that out here. Rattlesnakes, Gila monsters, you name it.
Yeah, the rattlesnakes aren't too much of a problem. You'll know when you're getting close to those guys.
Oh yeah.
I've actually nearly stepped on one when I was in Montana. It was a juvenile when it was 95 degrees outside, so it burrowed into the ground, but it didn't bother to rattle. It was too hot. It was trying to cool off, but it was right in the middle of the trail I was hiking on. So
Right.
I think my toe was about half inch over the top of it, and I just didn't quite step on it. And then I noticed it when I looked down, and I just kind of gingerly walked around it.
Yeah, that's why I bring a golf or frolf disc whenever I'm walking in rattlesnake territory. Just take their head off if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have where in New York State in the Catskills we have a Hunter Mountain. Is it Hunter? No, it's not Hunter. It's Overlook Mountain, which has its own weird history. Um, which there's the ruins of an old hotel from I want to say the early 1900s, maybe late 1800s. It's all this stone foundation. There's a good portion of a building still standing. But that is a timber rattler sanctuary, which is fun when you go hiking in September and all of the rattlesnakes are out and trying to mate. And they really love to hide in the foundations of those buildings because it's cool and dark and moist. And yeah, not a good time if you go down into those foundations.
Guarantee not.
No,
Mhm.
I've been
And
there.
Death Wish.
I've hiked that mountain a few times, pursuing the New York State Fire Tower Challenge, which is a hiking challenge. You hike up to the summit of 23 peaks in the state that have a fire tower on them, 18 in the Adirondacks, and then the five in the Catskills. But yeah, I've been through there and I've heard the rattles a few times, and not fun. That's the other thing I don't do is snakes. Luckily, most hunts don't do snakes.
Right.
That's just giving me an idea to do the Indiana Jones snake pit train. Like you walk over the top, and there's just a bed of snakes below you. I can actually think of a way to do that with rubber snakes now.
Oh, we can totally do that with technology. I mean, there's floor panels that you can program with video now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd probably do it with rollers. Get conveyor belt rollers, and then put a bed of snakes on top of them, and then get a motor to move the rollers, and so the snakes would just move up and down as they reposition on the conveyor belt.
Yeah, I don't do snakes.
Another one we've got up by us is called the Rhodes Motel. Rhodes Hotel. And there's a few different ways that you can spell it. Right now they're doing it as the RHODES. And we actually did a paranormal tour up there. Also did the overnight one. And that one was pretty fun. It was pretty active. Nothing violent or anything like that, but it was very active all night long. Like, it took us about an hour or so to, maybe 2 hours to get all the video cameras and all that stuff set up.
We set up a video camera in like all the hot spots of the house. Like they said, oh, this happens in this room. So we set a camera there, and this happens here. So we set 8 cameras up throughout a 2-story house. and we were there for the solid 8 hours, and we split up, so somebody was constantly watching the cameras, and the scaredy cat would stay and watch the cameras too, and then the rest of us would kind of investigate, by ourselves. Sometimes we were in a group, like we had to go into the attic, and all of us refused to go by ourselves, so we all went as a big group. And we took the spirit box with us, and we took several different types of cameras with us, and the EMFs, and we set up some REM pods that'll go off if a spirit touches it, or even if a person touches it. And one thing we caught, and I wish we had footage of it to show you now. I mean, we can get footage of it, but one of the cameras was in the living room where there was a piano. And as we were playing our footage back before we left, because the current owner of the hotel actually lives there in a separate section, so he's always there when you're there, but he, stays in his bedroom and he doesn't bother anybody or anything. So we wanted to show him anything we found because he was very curious. So we fully caught a apparition of a cat. There is no cat there. And the cat walks across the floor and jumps up onto the bench of the piano and sits there and jumps back down and walks off. I'm telling you, there's no cat. You can see through the cat. It is plain as day a cat. And we didn't know anything about it, so we showed it to him, and he was like, "Oh, wow, this is crazy." And we're like, "So you don't have a cat?" And he's like, "No. But," he said, "when we first purchased this building," he said, "we did find a mummified cat corpse up in the attic, and we had it removed." He's like, "So that was kind of interesting." Other than that, the Rhodes Hotel is known as basically a speakeasy, or they used it as a brothel for quite some time. And most of the upstairs bedrooms were women's rooms. And we had the spirit box, which, for those that don't know, it's the radio frequency, little AM FM radio, and it scans radio stations. And a lot of times we put headphones on so we can kind of pick out what it's saying easier. So the group will ask questions to the spirits that are around us, and they are supposed to be able to communicate through these radio frequencies, and then the person with the headphones on just repeats what they hear. The person with the headphones on cannot hear anybody in the room because we have the sound canceling headphones. So we were asking questions, and we could hear, we were convinced it was a pimp. We had females trying to talk to us, and then they would stop.
They would just go quiet.
And we're like, can you say something else or tell us your name? No, he won't let me. And we're like, who won't let you? And they would just stop talking. It was very strange. And then at one point, 3 of us went upstairs to one of the supposed most active rooms in the house, which was one specific female that worked there for a very long time. And they have her room decorated, and there's a bed and stuff in there. And we sat outside of her room again with the spirit box, and I had the headphones on, and whoever was talking to me through that box was actually making Tyler and the other person upstairs with us do things. And what I was saying was making sense with what they were doing. It told them to go into the bedroom and open the drawer or something in the dresser, and then it said, no, close that. And then they closed it.
Moving our hands up and down the different drawers, which one do we do? And then Nora would say that one. Oh, it's okay.
So and I could not see them at all. I didn't know anything about this until they told me after I took the headphones off, and they're like, "You were totally playing with us." And I'm like, "What?" And this was back in December, so it was pretty.
It is November because it's right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Because one of the times we were down in one of the lower rooms, we caught a relatively strong whiff of chocolate cake.
We did. Almost all of us smelled it. None of us were doing anything. We were all going outside to smoke cigarettes. And I kid you not, when we talked to the owner of the house before we left that morning, we told him that, and he said there used to be a bakery in the kitchen that was attached to this building. And we're like, what?
There's not now. Nobody was baking anything, but inside of this house, 3 or 4 of us smelled it, starting at one end of the room, and then the others started smelling it, and then so it was like somebody carried a chocolate cake through the house, like they were prepping for Thanksgiving or something.
Really
it
cool.
Seemed like, so.
Whatever we smelled, maybe somebody farted and it smelled like chocolate. I don't know. But it was still really cool that he'd said there used to be a bakery in here, and we're like, huh? What? And he's like, yeah, way back when they used it as the brothel or whatever. And we're like, well, that's really cool. But the railroad is right there, and they say John Denver used to stop in there, and a few other very well-known people. I can't think of them right off the top of my head, but it's also a really cool building and very cool to stay there overnight. And all their proceeds go to the they go to one of the nonprofit foundations. I can't think of which one off the top of my head.
One of the
Lost Limbs.
Lost Limbs
Foundation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really cool.
That's
We
a good
like
one.
to go ghost hunting ourselves. We'll go about anywhere.
There's a cemetery not far from here called Bridgewater Cemetery. Nora's got, she could rattle on for hours about that place. It's a private cemetery. But,
At the end of a dead end road.
Mm-hmm. And
it's on, I think I don't know if it still exists because we haven't been on there, but shadowlands.net or something along those lines that will tell you like local places. Yeah, Tiffany's shaking her head like, yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still online or not because I know a lot of people were getting in trouble by like doing the things that it said, but we found it on shadowlands.net like, I don't know, probably 15 years ago. And we used to go out there every single weekend. Like as a kid, before I could even drive, I would talk my friends that were 16 or older into driving us out to the cemetery all the time. And I have experienced way more there that I can't explain. And like we've been to Waverly multiple times, and we've been to Bobby Mackey's and everywhere. And I don't think anywhere that I've personally ever been is as active as the cemetery. And a lot of people know about it too, because when you go out there, if it's dark, there's going to be somebody that's either already there or you're going to have somebody come up on you. But according to shadowlands.net or anybody in the area, you're supposed to pull up to the cemetery, which is up on a hill. And it's like a Civil War cemetery or something. It's very, very old.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't buried anybody there for years. You're supposed to pull up and barely just kind of like nudge your car into the entrance gate. It's got like this big iron gate that stays open. And you're supposed to stay there, shut your car off, and just sit there and listen and watch. And there's a gravel road, of course, Midwest. So we would go to a local car wash before we would go. We would all get out of the vehicle, walk all the way around it, look at it, make sure that we didn't see anything on it, get back in the car at the same time. We did this so much, we were really good at it. Because we always thought we were playing tricks on ourselves. We would fly down this gravel road to make sure the car was dusty. So then that way, if anything touched the car or wrote something on the car, we would see it, because that was one of the legends, is they will write things on your car. And we would get up to the cemetery and we would stay there and we would talk and listen, and we would leave. Nobody would get out of the vehicle. And as soon as we got back to the car wash, we would all get out at the same time and do circles around the car looking at it.
Go to a car wash because there's a lot of light and all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And you're out there late at night, so the dew kind of settles on and really makes the dirt stick.
Now, whether our friends can play tricks on us very well or not, we've had different people in the car's names written on the car. Of course, we've had help me and kill. We've had some other strange things, but the one that I thought was the most interesting was there was like 4 of us one night, and we were in a Jeep, like a Jeep Cherokee. And we were with a friend of mine that's a medium. And I really think that she can talk to people that we can't see, because she's told us some things before, like about somebody in a house, and she wouldn't have known that information. Like we wouldn't have told her. So we feel like she has some sort of connection to at least know info that you just don't think she should. And she was driving that night, and all of a sudden we hear this noise. Nobody's out of the car. And I'm like, Judy, what was that? And she's like, get off my Jeep. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And we hear something like on the Jeep. And she's like, get off. And she's like yelling. And we're all like, what is she yelling at? She's like 40 at the time, and we're all 16. So we're like, this lady's lost her mind. Well, she said there is a guy, and he is standing on the Jeep. He's on the hood, and then we seriously heard something on the roof. And it was like someone was on the roof of the Jeep walking, and none of us were out of the car. And she's getting mad, like she's looking in her mirrors, and she's yelling at this thing, and we're like, she's just freaking us out. But how is she making that noise? Mm-hmm. So we go back to the car wash after she's yelling at this apparition. And we get out, and I kid you not, because I keep saying that, there were really boot prints on her hood and on the roof of this red SUV, this red Jeep. And she actually washed it that night because she was not happy. And as far as I know, she said she never could get those footprints off that car or the SUV, and she sold it and still didn't think that they never came off. So I don't know, oil or what was on these boots. I'm serious though, there were boot prints on this vehicle. when we left, and they weren't there before we went there. So that was like the coolest thing I've seen at the cemetery. We've met the Indiana ghost hunters out there a couple times. They were there investigating, and they had some really cool footage to show us. But there's a lot of different things online about that place. Like certain parts of the cemetery, you can go in and smell alcohol. We've had that happen. There's a trail. I'm not brave enough to go, but like if you go in the cemetery and go to a certain side, there's an actual little trail that goes behind the cemetery and like down a hill. And my brother actually went because he likes spooky stuff too, and he lives in Wisconsin, and he came to visit and wanted to go. So we took him, and he was the only one brave enough to go down this little trail by himself. And he, recorded it, audio recorded it on his phone. And he had a conversation with a lady that wasn't speaking English, and there was nobody with him. And we, to this day, never did figure out what that was saying, but it was just like old, and it was just not English. It was really weird. So if you're ever around the area and you want to go to the cemetery, we can definitely go with you. It's pretty cool.
She will not turn down an opportunity to go.
Heck no.
So you guys.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
We're gonna have to take Brian because he doesn't believe in ghosts.
Yeah,
of course, Tyler hasn't seen anything really either. But
yeah, no, I was gonna say, next year when we're more likely to be able to travel again, I typically try to avoid the Midwest like the plague, but I might have to take you up on that one. But
yeah, you should. You
but
should.
but only if we can go to Holiday World after we're done.
Yes, we can do that.
All right.
And maybe we can
Brian,
a couple other places on the way there.
Brian, you and I are going to have to get off of our coastal elitism about staying out of the Midwest.
Yeah.
Listen
I
here,
dropped down
I'm the
a
only
lot
East
to the
Coaster here.
Midwest, but there's nice people out there. I've got great friends in the Midwest.
It's just there's nothing to do.
Oh, there's all kinds.
There's
to
haunted
do.
houses.
Yeah, lots of them.
There's a lovely botanical garden that's in Grand Rapids. I've gone there multiple times. I had some great food last time I was in Ohio. I have nothing nice to say about Missouri. That whole state needs to just be renamed to Misery.
Yeah, well, so if you know anybody that served in the military and went to Fort Leonard Wood, it is called Fort Lost in the Woods by those people who have been there, and it is in the great state of Missouri. Yeah, no, Missouri is not. Nobody likes Missouri. Even people that live there are like, I'm only here until I have enough money to get the hell out.
So
we have
I was
to have
going
trained? Oh, Tiffany.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
I was going to piggyback off of Shadowlands. So they did take the old Shadowland site down, but somebody ended up copying it over.
Oh.
Because I think it was like an old school, like GeoCities, like old school website. Free Live Journal website. Yeah, it was great. But I was specifically looking it up like a couple days ago because I had problems and I remember things.
I was
Based on the internet?
Did you find
now.
anything interesting around here?
Yeah, except it's a whole bunch of like the same type of stories.
What?
A lot of like lumberjacks that fell from heights. That's what you do. You cut down a tree and it falls on you, and then you haunt the woods forever.
Even today, actually being the cutter for the lumber industry is the most dangerous job in the United States. You're more likely to die. It's 1 in 10 will die while doing that job.
Oh, wow.
We had somebody in our town that was just working at a lumber mill, and they like basically got their arm chopped off because they got it stuck in the blade.
Yeah,
that was here a few months ago.
Lumber industry is stupid dangerous, which is why I like how the Japanese are adding robots to it. They're taking the dangerous jobs out and just turning them into robots. If a tree falls on a robot, you just replace the robot.
Right.
Or the schools. I think every school had a student die in it, and there's a ghost that haunts that school. Like, it was talking about Woodinville, which is not that new of a school.
No, but if we want to do that, let's just go to the McMenamins in Bothell. That's built in 1903.
Yeah.
That's I think the oldest school in the area because it used to serve Woodinville, Bothell, and I want to say Kenmore. Either Kenmore or Kirkland. They all funneled into that one school at that time period because all the farming communities. There weren't that many people.
Right.
Like, yeah, like that's kind of the stuff, like the caliber that Shadowlands has for the area. I was trying to pick out stuff, and I was like, okay, dead student, and lumberjack, lumberjack, lumberjack.
Who's a fan of UFOs?
Yo, I
Yeah, I
am.
am.
I love the
And
idea of it.
Who's the fan of the Foo Fighters?
Oh, right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you know the name Foo Fighters actually came from a World War II pilot that spotted 3 flying objects around Mount Rainier before the Roswell incident?
Yeah,
Chased them with his Mustang,